returning to this thought over and over again, which is that if I've been wondering if my friends secretly hate me. Not my closest friends, but people I'm friendly with, people I see at the bar or work out next to at the gym, with on my kickball team. It's become a sneaking suspicion with some of my colleagues, especially those who I regularly see at actions and protests. And to be clear, they are all perfectly kind to my face. But then I see them online, and I see them post stories on Instagram, for example, about the evils of Israel, always in scare, problems with Zionists. And the complicating factor is that at this moment, it's become hard to discern what is a gross generalization and what is meant to be a dog whistle. I think I might switch mics. We're going to switch mics. Okay. I'm going to switch to the one that just got handed to me. Thank you. Let's start that again. I'm worried that my friends hate me. As I said, not my closest friends, but people that I see out and about, colleagues I see out and about because they're nice to my face, but when I see them post online, they're often posting stories about the evils of Israel, in scare quotes, or the problem with Zionists. And the complicating factor is that in this moment, it has become so hard to discern what is a gross generalization, what is meant to be a dog whistle. When an acquaintance of mine shared that he is unfollowing all Zionists, did he mean Zionists or did he actually mean Jews? And when another recently posted that Israel is the shadow force behind global oppression, did he mean Israel or did he mean Jews? Now, maybe you've had this feeling at some point over the past year and a half, unsure if you are still welcome in spaces where you once felt comfortable or could show up for causes that you care about. I've spoken to many of you who've shared a sense of unease around friends and family, coworkers and colleagues, as if they're holding you at arm's length or talking about you when you're not in the room. And to be sure, some of these ruptures are explicit. I know people who have been told to check their Judaism at the door, at least if they want to take part in whatever is happening inside. And let's be very clear, many of us have also had this experience in Jewish spaces, as those who oppose this endless war and its terrible consequences have been accused of being insufficiently loyal to our people, ignorant at best, at worst traitors. And so we find ourselves pushed out of spaces because we are Jews, but also not always welcome because of how we express our Judaism. I've sat down with so many of you who feel caught in between, who wonder where it is safe to be a Jew. And I hear the question that has been weighing on my heart echoed in so many people around me: where am I welcome and where do I belong? Now, if this is something that you have wondered at any point since October 7th, you are not alone. The national conversation around antisemitism has largely focused on the explicit cases of violence or vandalism, and these incidents are serious and they should be taken seriously, but they are also, thankfully, extremely rare. The larger problem, where the experience of discrimination is more likely to be felt, is in the implicit. Now, Harvard just released a new report which investigated anti-Semitism on campus, and that they found that the primary obstacle faced by many students is social alienation. The authors write, perhaps the best way to describe the existence of many Jewish and Israeli students at Harvard is that their presence has become triggering or the subject of political controversy. Now, this prejudice is more subtle, but it is no less damaging. And more tellingly, it affected students regardless of their stance on the war. Writing for The Forward, Arnold Rosenfeld noted that Jews, given our historic connection to the people and land of Israel, are more likely to have what he calls a textured view of the modern state. Yet he explained that expressing that, even in the mildest of ways, marked some Jewish students with a scarlet letter. And now this experience of social alienation has consequences. Eshel, an organization that works for LGBTQ plus inclusion in Orthodox Jewish communities, just released a report about the rise of antisemitism after October 7th and how it has reshaped the lives of queer Jews. 67% reported that wearing visible signs of Jewishness has led to harassment or exclusion. And whether they were disinvited or asked to leave or made to feel unwelcome, the authors found that 41% of respondents no longer engage in queer spaces like bars or clubs or social gatherings. One participant shared that the past year made me realize that I would rather be uncomfortable in Jewish spaces as a queer Jew than uncomfortable in queer space as a Jewish person. And I want us to understand how serious this choice is. Right now, LGBTQ plus people are extremely vulnerable. We have found ourselves in the crosshairs of this current administration. Our rights are under attack. Our resources are being dismantled. It is precisely in times like these that queer community can be an essential lifeline. Yet 7 out of 10 LGBTQ Jews have been told that they don't belong in these spaces, and 4 out of 10 LGBTQ Jews are not showing up at all. We are increasingly feeling that no matter our opinions or our politics, we are no longer welcome in the spaces where we have worked so hard to belong, where we should belong. The fact that anti-Semitism is increasingly expressed through social alienation makes it much harder to address. As one graduate student noted, what can Harvard Law School do about dirty looks? It also means that this administration's strongman approach to tackling anti-Semitism through arrests and deportations and funding freezes will likely exacerbate the problem, not solve it. Rosenfeld observes that this is not a reincarnation of ancient hatred, but it's a political phenomenon informed, of course, by what is happening in Israel and Palestine, but also tied to broader trends of polarization and binary thinking. The weaponization of Jewish safety to achieve Trump's anti-democratic and anti-intellectual agenda plays into these very dynamics rather than confronting them. When essential funding is cut in the name of protecting Jews, guess who will be blamed? This is not the first time that people with ill intent have used us as a means to deflect recrimination, and we all know too well how that ends. With the seeming impossibility of this moment pushed out of places where we once belonged and given good reason to be suspicious of those around us, of course, the natural instinct is to turn inward. We're safest with each other, right? I have watched as more Jews have shown up in Jewish spaces, which, to be honest, I'm not mad about. I'm glad you're here. But then I've also watched as those Jewish spaces have built higher walls, figuratively and literally, between them and between each other and the outside world. Whether we have been asked to leave or made to feel unwelcome, we have given up our seat at the table. Case in point, just a few months ago, I was the only rabbi who attended a citywide interfaith event sponsored by Mayor Johnson. There were priests, there were imams, I was the only rabbi. But we cannot give up our seat at the table. It will not make us safer to retreat while the world falls apart around us. The rabbis teach that a synagogue has to have windows and doors because what we do in here cannot afford to be unaffected by what is happening out there. But what do we do when we feel overwhelmed by the brokenness of the world and the broken places in our own hearts, when we feel isolated and alone in a world that we know that we cannot fix by ourselves? The Torah offers some guidance. When we open up the Torah this week, Aaron has just lost his sons, Nadav and Avihu, in a horrible accident. We are told that they brought Eish Zara, a strange fire, into the sanctuary of the Mishkan, and everything goes wrong. It's not what they had been instructed to do. It's not what God had asked for. And in an instant, the fire consumes them, and they're gone. Moses tries to make meaning of this tragedy, but Aaron, their father, is silent. And who could blame him? He is the high priest. The Mishkan is where he belongs. Yet now the place where he should have felt most safe has become dangerous to him. But then God invites Aaron to show up, to come back into the sanctuary and perform the rituals of the very first Yom Kippur. Where Moses tried to make sense of this tragedy, God simply notes that what was once whole is now broken. And it's sad, and it's hard, and this is how we begin the process of repair. And it's not just repair for Aaron, but for the entire community. With the death of Nadav and Avihu, there must have been so much blame. There must have been so much blame to go around. What were they thinking? Bringing strange fire into the sanctuary. Where was Aaron, who should have been supervising them? Why didn't God give better instructions? Did everyone just watch this happen? Why did no one intervene? But this is kind of the point, isn't it? It's why on Yom Kippur we stand as a congregation and beat our chests for sins that we may have never committed. Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu. For all harm happens within societies that allow it. Who can we really blame for all the evils of the world? There is no Tolkien-esque answer to this question, some dark force or shadowy figure that must be defeated. Whether we heal or we harm, each of us operates within systems that none of us control, but all of us are a part of. And since we are a part of those systems, when we see that they lead people to do bad things, it is in our power, and I would add our responsibility, to change them. I think about the young Palestinian or the Israeli teenager who picks up the gun, who chooses or is made to stand on the front lines of this terrible war. Who is to blame? Tell me, who is to blame? The kid? Their parents? The organizations that recruited and enlisted them, the stories that shaped them, or the society in which they were raised, the state of the world, or the long histories they inherit? Can we truly blame these children for the strange fire they carry as it threatens to consume them and burn this sacred land to the ground? We are to hold them accountable for their actions. We must also hold accountable every single person who made the decisions that led to this moment in history. And so when we point our finger at someone, we point our finger at the entire world. Now, this is not to say that we don't hold people accountable for the harm that their actions cause, but this is also where our tradition makes a remarkable turn. Immediately following the description of that first Yom Kippur, the Torah offers a list of mitzvot. How do we respond to the harm that people have caused? Here is our answer. We build a better world, one that gives people the resources and support they need to actualize the good that has been inside of them all along. This list, called the Holiness Code, forms the ethical foundation of Judaism and lays out our vision of a just society. Let me name a few. Leave the edges of your field unharvested so the poor can eat what is left. Pay workers on time. Do not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. Judge people fairly. Don't be a bystander. Don't hold a grudge. Do not oppress the stranger. And ahavta l're'echa kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. What the great sage Hillel teaches is the distillation of our entire tradition, the entire Torah, in just 3 words. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it. And you'll notice that none of these mitzvot, none of these commandments are contingent on the actions of other people. None of them specify whether you like someone or think they are deserving of your largesse. Regarding the mitzvah of leaving the edges of your field unharvested, the 19th century scholar Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch notes that the Torah does not care about the size of the field or its yield, and for a reason. Because it teaches us that even if you have a very small field and not much yield, even if you don't get along with the poor of your town and don't see them as your responsibility, you are still obligated to contribute to the means that will sustain them. The law code, the Shulchan Aruch, teaches that all of us are always responsible for each other's care, even the person who receives charity must give to others from that which they receive, which is to say that none of us are allowed the luxury of thinking ourselves as solely a victim and therefore not an agent as well, even if we can only do a little. This is our inheritance. This is our sacred obligation as Jews. We show up even if no one else is showing up, even if no one is showing up for us. Our pain, however real, does not abrogate our responsibility toward the world. Fear is no reason to turn away. Alienation cannot be cause for isolation, and scarcity is not an excuse for selfishness. But trust me, I get it. It can be very hard to show up in spaces where we have been made to feel like we are no longer welcome. On May Day, I attended an interfaith gathering in solidarity with immigrants and workers. These are folks who have been in grave peril since this administration took office, and most of the speakers offered messages of encouragement and action. And then someone stood up to talk about Israel and the occupation, the ongoing war in Gaza. And some of what they said was very painfully true. Unacceptable harm is being inflicted on Palestinians who at this moment are starving and dying en masse, and we cannot afford to look away until something has been done for them. But some of what they said was also deeply problematic, as they offered sweeping generalizations about this state and its citizens. Israel is not conceptual. For me, like for many of us, it is a very real place filled with very real people. Some of them are caring people, people who are doing their best, hundreds of thousands of people, in fact, who have been protesting to end this war even as their government ignores them. And over 70% of Israelis want an end to violence, a hostage deal, and to get out of Gaza. And let's not forget the brave people who live there as well, Israeli Jews who are committed to the actual work, the actual on-the-ground work of building a future of peaceful coexistence alongside their Palestinian neighbors, despite incredible danger to themselves and their loved ones. They stand in the breach between two peoples who have many reasons to no longer believe in that future, yet they hold on to that vision because they recognize that there is no moral alternative. And so when this speaker railed about the evil of Israel, I had to wonder if I, as a Jew, with ties to that land and its people, someone who has a textured understanding of this place, belonged at this gathering. Was I welcome there? But I was. I stayed. I did belong there. Because it takes a degree of chutzpah to claim our seat at the table, especially after it's been pulled out from under us. But we are called to show up, even if it means that we're awkwardly standing next to the table, even if it means that we're knocking down the door to get in. Our absence will not build a better world. In fact, our absence will only allow our voice to be co-opted by those who would use our concerns to further an agenda that in the end will harm us all. This week, more than 36 former leaders of major Jewish organizations, including the ADL and Hillel International and AIPAC, published an open letter in the New York Times rebuking the current leadership of those very organizations for being, quote, far too silent about the stunning assault on democratic norms. Now is not the time to step away, they said. In fact, it is the time to lean in whatever way that we can. Our tradition reminds us, no matter how little we have to give, we can give something even if it's just our presence, even if it's just showing up. It's scary, and it's hard, and it might feel like you're doing it alone. But in the words of my teacher, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, be the one to help someone else believe in the goodness of humanity. Be the one to help someone else believe in the goodness of humanity. And when you do show up, I guarantee that you'll find other people standing there alongside you. I know I'll be there. And the people in this room, I know you'll be there. And every Jew who heeds the call of our tradition will be there, and our friends and loved ones, I think they'll be there too. Let's remind people of the goodness that is possible together.
Yashar Koach, Rabbi Steven.